Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Beth Chats Books. Now today I'm trying a slightly different background on ground level. So last time you saw me I was on my bed and I just moved into this house, and I've tried to see whether being nearer my bookshelf helps. I tried to angle it so it doesn't look like I'm on the corner, but if I try and angle it this way it wasn't kind of working, because then you'd be able to see my towels drying under the window. And this is my wardrobe, so I'm testing this out, and please let me know in the comments down below if you prefer this or where I was in the last video. Obviously it's not looking as bright as the last video as well because it's past 4 o'clock, so the sun has gone down. So I just want to apologise if my voice sounds a bit shaky in this video. I've been a bit poorly for the last couple of days, after Boxing Day really. I'm down with a really horrible cold, and yesterday I just couldn't function. I was just sleeping, taking paracetamol and sleeping. It was very bad, and I'm feeling a little bit better today. 100%, but I thought I would try and do a video and check in and kind of explain. So that's why the Christmas tag never happened as well. Christmas just went by in a flash as well. So I really didn't have any chance to catch up. So I've decided not to do that Christmas tag because we're nearly into New Year now, so it's a bit pointless to do that one. So instead I'm just going to catch up. There's a few books I've read. Being poorly has really slowed down my reading progress. So there's only 3 to discuss, and then one I'm about to currently read, and then I have a bag of books really. 2 were presents from Paul's parents, and then the rest, his mum's got a lovely library at her house. And after I'd had a few glasses of wine I said, oh, there's loads of books on your shelves that I've been admiring for so long that are on my TBR kind of thing. And she said, oh, which ones? So I went and had a little potter around with her bookshelves, and she said, take them home, read them and let me know how you get on. So I thought I might just kind of Christmas haul those, because they're not going to be an immediate TBR because obviously I've still got a few books left to read for my library book haul, and I've wanted to take some of these books back for a while, but I've just been too poorly to get out of bed. So the first one I want to talk about is Skin Deep by Liz Nugent. So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this story and it was quite unexpected where it went. This follows Cordelia, who she's kind of had a bit of a messy past when we kind of meet her, and it kind of jumps forward in time, so we're in present time with her and then it goes back in time. So she's not a very likeable protagonist, and I quite liked that. She's very vain, she's beautiful, and everybody thinks that she's beautiful, and she ends up having a tricky situation where she kind of falls in love with 2 brothers and plays them off against each other a little bit. She's not as considerate to their feelings as she should be. A trauma happens in her life later on in life that affects how she feels about her vanity, but it doesn't make her a better character. She doesn't learn from that. At the beginning she lives in a rural part of Scotland, and is besotted with her dad, who her dad loves her to bits, and she has 3 brothers, and her mother and the 3 brothers are kind of not really part of her dad's kind of sphere, what he cares about. He only cares about his daughter, and she uses that to her advantage. She's a liar from young childhood all the way to adulthood. She's quite good at lying and getting herself out of tricky situations, and it has a knock-on effect. I don't want to give too many spoilers. She ends up with a child that she didn't want and she abandons, and then we kind of learn what happens to that. So there's loads of really rich and interesting things going on. I loved that she really wasn't a great protagonist, because I think a lot of the times we kind of want our protagonists to be good and wholesome, but the reality is people aren't always, and in some ways her really childhood and what she experienced doesn't excuse her, but it gives some context to why she treats people the way she does and her attitude to certain things. It's just got this page-turning quality, and I think because it almost reads the equivalent of what a kind of psychological crime episode or a thriller would feel like. She's very self-motivated, egotistical, and bizarrely I think as readers we quite like that. We quite like going into the world of somebody just so far removed from us, who only goes for her own goals, and kind of watching the car crash happen a little bit with with where her life takes those kind of dark turns. So I just loved it. I know a lot of people will probably read this and think, oh my god, this protagonist was awful. And what was interesting is quite a lot of things happen in this, but it didn't have that dram. Sometimes a lot of people write thrillers and it just goes over the top and it just leaves reality at such a sharp turn that you kind of think, no, I didn't believe it, I didn't buy it, didn't enjoy it. And I've read a few thrillers like that where I thought, you've just gone completely off track. But this didn't, and I liked it for that. So yeah, I would really recommend people who like kind of darker, deeper, getting into the skin of character books to definitely give this a try. It was fantastic, just really, really page-turny. Thoroughly enjoyed it. And then the next one I read was Swimming Lessons by Claire Fuller. Now, I've read Bitter Orange by Claire Fuller and I wanted to see whether I would enjoy this one. So I believe I gave this one, consulting my notebook, I think I gave this 4 stars. So it did surprise me because when I first started reading this, it had a lot slower of a pace than Skin Deep, and I was a little bit concerned that that would maybe affect how I got on with this one. But it redeemed itself the further I got on with this book. So this follows mainly, it's cut into 2 sections. So it follows Flora, and then the other section follows Ingrid, which is Flora's mother. So Ingrid's disappeared for as long as Flora can remember. She doesn't really have any recollection of her mother. And she is kind of raised by her sister and her father. So her father's called Gil. And I forgot what her sister's called. Oh, and her sister's called Nan. So Flora's raised by Nan and Gil. And Nan takes on this mother role when Ingrid disappears. But then the second half of the story, it kind of alternates between Flora's point of view. So when we start the book, Flora comes back to see her father in Dorset because he's had an accident on Dorset Beach because he thought he saw Ingrid. He's run after her and he's had a bit of an accident on the cliffs. Flora comes back to support Nan in looking after him. We find out he's kind of dying. The house is littered with books. He was a lecturer of creative writing and the house is just full of books. And then the second part, the alternating part of the story, is Ingrid writing letters to Gil when he disappears. For a brief period he leaves the kids behind with Ingrid, and her talking about how their relationship took a drastic turn for the worse. From that hopeful, naive young woman she was, she fell in love with him at university. She was one of his students, and how it went from this very promising romantic relationship to the reality of what it became. So Gil is openly a bit of a womanizer the further we get into this novel, and it's quite heartbreaking that Ingrid kind of fell head over heels for a man who is always going to disappoint her. And it gives such a rich context considering we never really meet Ingrid. These letters are very powerful as a reader. So this really moved me at points. I felt really sorry for Ingrid and Flora's naivety. She was besotted with her father and everybody kind of covered up for him, especially Nan to Flora. So Flora thinks that the sun shines out of her dad's arse a little bit, and she never knew the reality of the doomed relationship between her parents. So it packs an emotional punch, this book, and I think I enjoyed it a little bit better than Bitter Orange because it had this really nice family saga development. It didn't give me that gut reaction of loving it quite as much as Skin Deep, so that's why I've only given it 4, because it was very well written. And in the moment it had a very powerful reaction on me, but long term I don't know whether it will stay inside my brain as much as I would love it to. So there's that one, that's 4 stars. And then a book I've just finished today is The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. Now this book's taken me maybe 5, nearly 6 days, which is ridiculous because I usually race through thrillers, but because I've been that poorly, I've been reading chapters before my head's been swimming and I've had to put the book down. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't get as much through this as I wanted. So it's slightly different of a premise to how I explained it to you guys when I was hauling it, or TBRing it, or whatever you want to call it. So basically the main protagonist is Hal, and she receives a letter. She lives in Brighton and she is a tarot reader, and she's in a lot of debt. She owes a loan shark a lot of money, and she receives a letter from somewhere in Cornwall which is stating that she has a grandmother who's died, who's leaving her the estate in her will. Now she goes down and is a little bit confused because she doesn't know any grandparents. Her mother died in a car accident and she never knew her father. When she gets to the house, she thinks there's been a mistake and that the grandmother believes that she is her daughter's child. But when she's investigating, she's looking at pictures of the family, she thinks, no, actually, I'm not the daughter's child, I'm the daughter's cousin's child. Because there was another, they both had the same name, there was a Maud and a Maggie that lived at the house. And Hal says, no, Maggie was my mum, not Maud, and she realises there's been a mistake and she is determining whether to tell the truth because she really needs this money to give to the loan shark. However, a lot of twists and turns then happen, which mean that everything's not quite as it seems, and maybe this will wasn't necessarily a mistake. Maybe there's some other stuff going on. So I thought this was really well structured for a thriller. I've read many thrillers, things like Gone Girl, that I didn't enjoy, Girl on the Train, because I thought it wasn't well plotted and structured, and it was either overly obvious or just distorted in a way I didn't enjoy. But this structurally is very sound, one of the soundest thrillers I've read, because I think I'm one of those readers that enjoys thrillers enough that I see things coming. And in this way, it kind of gave you two or three plausible routes all the way through. So in some ways it gave you the answer from the beginning, but the way it unravelled was delicious and you didn't expect the way it was going to happen, and you kind of felt the revelation at the same time that she did. And things slotted really beautifully into place. So I was really impressed with that. So I gave this 4.5. I was really tempted to give it 5. However, upon a bit of mulling, I don't think it's a full 5 because I didn't have that gut reaction, like I said, with Skin Deep, and also I don't think I'll remember quite the plot twists and turns in the same way in a few months' time. Also, I think the fact that I've been really poorly and it's took so long has kind of taken its toll on my reading experience with this, because I was kind of trudging through the end, not because I was not enjoying the book, but just because I was so poorly and I wanted to be done with it. Yeah, 4.5, really enjoyed where it went with it. And a lot of people have recommended it on the BookTube community, so it did not disappoint at all. And then the book I'm going to start later this evening is There by Tommy Orange. I really don't know that much about it. I did haul it for you guys in a recent book haul in the library, so I will obviously, like the other books, tell you a little bit more about what's going on when I get to it. But I haven't started it yet. And then I still have Melmoth by Sarah Perry, which I forgot to mention in the last haul, but it still belongs to the same library haul. The Good People by Hannah Kent and The Orchestra of Minorities. And I'm going to take the Kate Atkinson Life After Life back, because when I went to Paul's parents for Christmas, she was going to get rid of it. She had her own copy, and I said, oh, give it to me and then I can read it and give the one back to the library so that somebody else can take it out. So look, so there it is, Life After Life. And she also gave me A God in Ruins, which is kind of a semi-follow-up, which I saw both were at the library, so that's nice, I can give them back. And then she also gave me another Kate Atkinson book, which is Case Histories. And I also want to read transcription, but if I enjoy all these, then I'll carry on. So these 3, I don't have to be in a rush to give it back, because she was actually going to give these to charity. But the rest of these, I will. Oh no, wait, that's a lie. There's some more Kate Atkinson. I didn't realise she was going to go so much Kate Atkinson. Another one is Behind the Scenes at the Museum. I've never heard of half of these anyway, because I'm not a big... I haven't read any Kate Atkinson, so there you go. And the last one is Kate Atkinson, One Good Turn. So yeah, they're the small pile that I don't have to be in a rush to give her back, because I think she was getting rid of anyway. And then two that I saw on the shelves that have been on my TBR for as long as I can remember, because I wanted to read more of her for ages, is two Zadie Smith novels. The first is On Beauty, and the second is White Teeth. I'm not going to go into what they're about because I don't, honestly, with a lot of books I don't really know what they're about. I just kind of see them, and they've been on prize winning lists, and usually I'm better explaining it once I've read it. And then the two books that she actually gave me for Christmas, and this was one that was a personal request, and that was The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. This is about the 5 victims of Jack the Ripper, and I think it's a really interesting perspective because it's kind of a non-fiction that focuses on just the lives of these 5 women, not anything to do with the crime, just who they were, contextualising them, which I think was a really interesting idea because these are 5 women that we literally know nothing about. In history we've generalised them as prostitutes and as the poor, and we've never really got to know their context. That sounds really interesting to me. I tried to look in the library, but this book is not available at the library, so it was a bit of a treat. And then I was so pleasantly surprised she bought me another book, and this has also been on a long list of books that I want to read, and that is The Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Now, my mum had read this and really enjoyed this. I thought this was going to be a heavy historical fiction, but apparently his mum said you get really invested in the characters. It's really well written and quite pacey, so it sounds like something that's going to be right up my street. I'll let you guys know when I get to it. His mum was particularly interested in how I found this one, so I'll have to get on this one pretty soon so I can let her know. And then just a brief little interlude to kind of let you guys know, I'm definitely going to do a favourite books of the year video, and I will discuss that, and also I will discuss kind of reading plans and what I want to do. But on this bookshelf as well, there's a few books that I've been mulling around. I want to do an idea of next year doing maybe challenging reads, which I mentioned previously, which it could be that the content is challenging, it could be that the page length is challenging. It's not necessarily that the book itself is going to be a challenge or it's going to be dark, or I kind of want to do a mix. So there's a few on this shelf that I'm thinking will potentially go on that list. So I'm going to do 12 to 24 for the year, so maybe 2 per month, maybe 1 depending on the actual book itself. Because for example, I want to read things like Rohinton Mysteries, A Fine Balance, and A Little Life by Hanya Yangihara. But with this particular book, it is an absolute stonker, as well as A Fine Balance, so they might take me a lot longer. And then we have ones like, let's have a little look, ones like An American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis, which I think will be more disturbing reads. So I'm going to compile a list and do a video of that. But I just wanted to let you know that that's going to be one of my main focuses of my challenges of next year. But that's everything I wanted to discuss. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.